Dr. Bernard Bulwer grew up on the south side of Belize City and attended St. John's College. He was awarded a scholarship to study medicine at the University of the West Indies. He further pursued a master's at King's College, the University of London, and was a fellow and conducted advanced medical research at Harvard University, where his expertise is cardiovascular disease. Dr. Bulwer is a prolific writer and advocate for heart health and has served as author, co-author, editor, and medical illustrator of a number of textbooks and didactic works in echocardiography. His books are used in Harvard Medical School and other medical education organizations. Dr. Bulwer is currently founder and project director of Echo Stethoscope Academy Project and has served in different capacities such as research associate in Brigham Women's Hospital, faculty of the World Congress for Ultrasound in Medical Education, program director for MCPHS University, and director of medical services at the Carl Huschner Memorial Hospital. Dr. Bulwer's focus is to educate and equip today's students and practitioners with the foundation tools for responsible use cardiac ultrasound echo stethoscopes within their scope of training. Such tools are designed to complement medical education, diagnostic medical sonography programs, clinical practice, and global health. This new technology will increase accessible heart monitoring devices to vulnerable and remote communities.
Accident and no experience is wasted. And actually, one of the good things about today is that with social media and things like YouTube, there are no shortage of people's lives and their stories. And so my brother who's in Belgium once asked me, what am I actually doing? I told him I'm doing my father's workshop in Boston. And many times people look at my Facebook and they would see Boston and they would think it's Boston, Massachusetts. Actually, I'm referring to Boston State because life is a series of, hello?
No, you're good.
Yeah. Life is a series of it's not just a journey, but it's a series of planting, watering, and then slowly you're going to see different things coming up and you're going to say, wow, okay, now I understand. So I learned responsibility in a family of 12. I learned how to do things. I learned the principles of sowing and reaping. And what that helped me to do was that as a kid, one of the advantages that I had, I was not just the youngest kid in high school, but unfortunately or fortunately, I did not know what puberty was in high school. So I didn't have to struggle with these crazy hormones all in high school, so I could focus on my books. And that actually went into sixth form. I think I was the only guy who graduated from high school who didn't know what puberty was, right? And that caught me in sixth form. Are you hearing me? You with me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. And what happened is that I was more of a book man because I wasn't one of the handsome guys with real muscles and so forth, right? And all those acne and everything was coming out. And so long story short, I studied my books. I got a scholarship to go to Jamaica, five and a half years in Jamaica, 2.5 in Trinidad, 2 years in Trinidad. And then I had come back home thinking that was it. Long story short, right? I spent 9 months in Belize and then I was whisked away to London, right? That's another story in itself. I actually was in Orange Walk for like 9 months. That's where I learned to speak Spanish. I mean, real Spanish. But then, I went to London. I got a scholarship to the University of London, King's College. That's where I got involved in a lot of stuff like with nutrition and diabetes. And then I went on, to the north of England, to Newcastle, where I started getting into preventive heart disease. I came back to Belize, and actually, even before I went to England, I had gotten together with a doctor called the late Dr. Greg Castillo. We started the Belize Diabetes Association, right? And so when I went to England, I actually excelled. I did specialist studies in diabetes, in nutrition, and in preventing heart disease. And when I came back home to Belize, I wanted to work at the Carl Hushner. They said they didn't need my services because they didn't have space. That's when I came back and I said, you know what, Belize is home. I need to come home. So I actually had to go into debt, borrowed money to build a building so that I could work in my own country. I started first started out with the Belize Center for Diabetes, Nutrition, and Cardiovascular Disease, Prevention of Cardiovascular Disease, a long name, but that's what it meant. We wanted to look at prevention of heart disease, treating diabetes, and teaching people about nutrition. And that's when I actually started to write weekly in the newspaper. No one had seen a doctor, dedicated, write weekly, your health and you. That was in a local newspaper, the Amandala back then. And it reached a stage where I knew that things were coming to an end. And I said, you know what? I was going to leave Belize, but I wanted to leave something behind. So I actually wrote my first book. Are you with me?
Yep, we're here.
I actually wrote my first book 17 years ago. This is my first. By the way, all these here. Are you seeing my bookshelf?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
You can see it.
All the books that I have, a sample of books that I have written, but it's more of it is actually online more than it's there. But this was the title of my first book. Seeing it? Are you seeing the cover?
Yes, we can see you. We can see the video.
The cover, and then that is, and the first line said, most people kill themselves, right? That's not a joke. I laughed, but that was more sarcasm. So I learned, or my motivation was what I had learned, I wanted people to know. What I had learned, I wanted to impart. I took no pleasure in people being sick. Most people kill themselves by their lifestyle, either eating too much, drinking too much, doing too much crazy stuff, right? And when it comes to nutrition, Belize is a place that is very wealthy in good food. But historically, we have despised a lot of our heritage. And we ended up trying to eat the Englishman food or the American man food and disrespected the Belize food. And so that was the motivation, because I came home to Belize and I saw a lot of people very sick with diseases that required diabetes monitors, regular sugar checks and everything like that. And the medications were expensive. And if you had complications, Belize did not even have the kind of technology to treat you. So this was a prevention book. This is a book that I wish that a doctor had written for me had I not been a physician, so that I could take care of myself. Because my philosophy was always this: I don't want you to keep coming back to me over and over again for the same thing. Because, truth be told, I'm not in medicine to make money. I wanted to impart people. And so this was actually not about doctors. This was how you can look after yourself. So if you were to ask me what my philosophy is back then and now, it hasn't changed. Essentially, it is this: what I have learned, I wanted to give. And interestingly, this book, when I was invited by a Nobel laureate to Boston, a man came from Boston in the same field, literally right next door. Where I'm right now is literally in the center of the Harvard Medical School. I both live and work in this area. And he came from Boston and saw me in Belize, opposite the Princess Hotel where I had my practice. And he said, you need to come to Boston. So I did not go trying to come to Harvard or Boston, And my message here is this: I am a firm believer that everyone is like a flower. Everyone can bloom where you planted. And if you do your best job at whatever stage you are, that is actually something that opens the door to the next step, right? Because I know we go through tests in school. You pass infant 1, infant 2, standard 1, standard 2. You have to pass each stage to go to the next stage. There's another examination that takes place, in my view, in life. I see life in a very spiritual way, meaning that somehow everyone is unique. Everyone has a special gift to impart, you know, as a person, within your family, within your community, within your country, and within the wider world, right? And let me just take a little diversion here, because in as much as my life is interesting, I'm a student of life. We saw just like 2 days ago, we saw a young girl with a Haitian father and a Japanese mother, grew up in Japan, you know, only 22 years old, looked at the Williams sisters, was inspired by them, came to America. Long story short, she's impacted not just the United States, not just Japan, but the world. And you also have people like, you know, who gave her a shout out, Lewis Hamilton. His father was from Grenada, the Caribbean, mother English, took on what you call, these were all white sports, both tennis as well as Formula One racing. And both of them are at the top of their game, have done what no British man has done what no Japanese, what no, you know. So I'm just saying that because even though I'm speaking about me, I'm a student of life. And I believe that one of the big things as young people is for people to mentor you at your stage, to recognize that no part of your life, background, journey is wasted. I'm a little out of sync here because I moved from my desk where I have a lot of cameras, but I'm not sure even which camera is being used right now. I think it's maybe my external camera. But I'm just trying to connect with you, and maybe I should stop here and try to get some feedback before I go on, because, you know, we're already late and I really wanted, you know, them to get the most out of this session. Talk to me.
So, Dr. Bulwer, let me ask you some questions then. Growing up in a very large family with modest means, what was some of your biggest challenge beside puberty? But what did you find was some big challenges that allowed you to actually maximize, not become distracted with the fact that maybe you are not able to succeed because you have 12 siblings or 11 siblings? I mean, what motivates you?
I will touch on that question, but I'll just mention for half a minute something fast forward. By the grace of God, I have done what has never been done in my field. I took up these instruments here, right? You can see pictures of my heart, my lungs, a baby. 16 years ago, I set out on a journey to help change the way doctors examine people's hearts. The long story is that every book that has come out of Harvard Medical School, I really changed the way this subject is taught. And right now I've merged with a pioneering company that makes the first device where you can hear a stethoscope and see the heart beating with the electricity at the same time. So I'm fast forwarding because, you know, I'm from Belize, you know, I made this journey and reached here, but how does my childhood, my Belizeanness impacted what I do today? And this to me is one of the most important things I want to impart. And that's why I mentioned at the outset, I'm doing what I learned in my father's workshop, in my mom's restaurant, at the farm in Boston. What is it in my childhood that I learned that are pivotal? One, being number 12 in a family of a dozen, I learned to share. give, give, give. You heard me? You heard me? Hello? Are you
Yes,
hearing me?
sir. I can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
I want a little feedback. That's one of the crappy things about Zoom, because but giving, trust me, the problem we are in our country, the problem that we have in this world, the problem we have in the relationship, you know what it is? Too many takers. Too many takers. So I learned in my big family to share. You're forced to share. As a matter of fact, I had a I was giving a lecture. I was trying to teach about a complex heart disease where the big arteries, two big arteries leave from the top of the heart to go, one to the lungs, one go the aorta to the brain and to the rest of the body. But there are some children where, one artery gets so narrowed that the lungs is starved of oxygen, so you don't get oxygen and the babies appear blue. And then one of the arteries is so big, it took too much, so it created, nasty mixture of oxygenated and blood without oxygen. Long story short, that's a bad medical condition. But the reason why I mentioned about that is that I was in a lecture and it was a difficult subject. And then I laughed before I explained this. I said, I had a sister. I said, my dad told her, I think she was eating, what was it? I think it was a golden plum, right? And if you're from the Dominican Republic, they call it manzana de oro, right? Golden apple. But my father told her to share the golden plum with me because she was about to eat it by herself. And you know what she did? She cut the golden plum in two, not in half. So I complained to my dad, and she said, why is he complaining? He said to give, him half. And long story short, she said, I cut it in half. She meant she cut it in two. She took the big half and she gave me the small half. And that actually caused disease. That's the problem of what they call the blue baby syndrome. And why did I say that? What does that have to do with this conversation? Life is not just a journey, but it's a principle. And the more you share, everything flows how it should flow. But the minute you start to try cheat life, and you start being a taker, the more you take, the less someone else has. And the more dysfunctional, like in this case, the heart becomes, the body becomes, the health becomes, the more dysfunctional relationships become, the more dysfunctional the world becomes. You hear people speak about the 1%. There's no shortage of money in this world. There's no shortage of food in this world. There's no shortage of wealth or opportunities in this world. One of the problems in life is that too many people are takers. And I've learned in life, and what opens the door for me to do what has been unprecedented in my field, it is one philosophy. How can I help? How can I use what I have to make a difference in your life? Trust me, trust me, trust me. What you're seeing in the politics in Belize, what you're seeing in the crime scene in Belize is all based on a fundamental disregard for the principle. And let me make it more plain to you. The area that I deal with is heart disease, okay? Heart disease, a lot of the problems at the heart is the circulation. People want to put too much stuff in their system, which their body can't use. It clogs the system, right? And then nothing circulates. Sharing helps stuff to circulate. When you start hoarding, you start block the flow. And there is a purpose in this whole universe. The rivers do it, the rain and all these circulatory systems do it, what we call the blood and heart, the circulatory system. If you starve any part of the body, it becomes disease. If you start any part of society, it becomes disease. One of the reasons why I had wanted to get involved in UB a few years back is that, truth be told, and I'm saying this bluntly, I'm not into politics and what have you. I mean, we have been led by people who are politicians but not statesmen. In other words, if I can travel through the village, if I can travel through from Belize north to south, you know, I know most of Belize, so if I go all the way up north, all the way down south, whether it is Shaibi, Barranco, Shunush, Arenal, Tres Lenguas, all these places there. I've been to many of these places. And one of the problems is that I believe in the golden rule, not just, I believe in doing unto others as you'd have others do unto you, but I believe in an even higher principle, to love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, what I would want for myself, I would want for my patient, for those kids coming up, for the opportunity. And that principle of not sharing, that principle of selfishness, it means that if you know of an opportunity, you hide it from someone rather than passing it on. And I'm telling you this, you don't have to follow the crowd. You have a better life, better health, better relationships, better future if you learn to be a giver. This is not what the world system, the political system, a lot of the educational system teaches you. It teaches you that you get ahead by taking opportunity that others don't have. Yes, you get ahead, you progress by taking opportunities, but seizing opportunities does not mean depriving others of opportunities. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I had an opportunity to become a doctor. What did I do with it? Was it just to open a practice to preside over people being sick so that they could keep coming to me? They'll always be sick, so they'll always be coming and they'll always be spending money and my salary is guaranteed. I could have lived at that level, but truth be told, yes, we need doctors in Belize to look after everything. But for me, I wanted to be the kind of person, I wanted you to know what I learned in England so that you can look after yourself better. And you know what? I don't want to be sitting behind the desk all the time dealing with your sickness. I want you to be well so I could get on with my life. So, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What I just told you there, it's not just words. It's what will help to heal your life and the life of our country. Because the problem of Belize and the problem of the world is a problem of greed, selfishness, people who don't use their strengths, their skills, their opportunities. I wrote a poem. Aria, you may have access to it, but I threw that out because it speaks to so many things, right? But essentially, what I was trying to say is that if you use your smarts, your knowledge, your strengths, your assets, your skills to take advantage or to prey on others, you're a predator. But if you take your strengths and your skills to lift up another human being, you see, because these are some of life lessons that maybe you don't hear all the time. If you hold another person down, you know what happens? You stay down. To hold someone down, you have to stay down. That's why our countries don't grow, because we keep pushing others down. Look at what I did. I gave what I had. I poured it out. What was poured in, I poured out. What that did, it freed me up to go to the next level. Someone came all the way from Boston, invited me to Boston. A lot of people are begging, if you come here, 80% of the students here are from like Asia, China mostly, many from Korea, Taiwan, but they are very into competition. Many people ask me, how did you get to do all of this? And Brownwell, who is like the cardiac pope, you have the best echo book and that he's seen. This is a 90-year-old man. Books are named after him right there. My name is on his book, right? On the name of the cover is his book. And the reason I'm mentioning that is that the more you help others, this is scripture, right? More blessed to give than receive. Love your neighbor as yourself. Take care of each other. What's so hard about that? What's so hard about when I see you rather than watching what you have and trying to get it and to try to hold you down. That's the level we are living in Belize, where we watching one another and the politics has us divided, right? And we limit what we could have done. And so let me stop there because I've said a mouthful and I want to hear some direct questions back from you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Bulwer.
I just came in. I was out. I did a combination of hiking and jogging for like 8 miles. So
Nice.
that's why I had my mango and my juice, and this is soy milk. I had some walnut. Go ahead.
So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to start taking questions from the participants, our fellows. And could you guys, if anybody have any questions, could you please start asking the questions? I think I have unmuted everyone.
Evening. This is the King. Dr. Bulwer, I just wanted to make sure that this is the book that you have showed us. I have this book because 2 of my grandmother are diabetic, and I could read a page to make sure.
Yeah, that was bad writing back then. I had a new edition, but go ahead. I learned to write a bit better, but go ahead.
Yes, sir. Lifestyle habits, diet, and risk factors for a chronic disease. Western diet. Excess calorized and processed foods. Excess total fat, saturate.
Yes.
Trans fats.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thanks. I'm happy to have a book from you.
You mean that's the one with the hamburger on it, right? On the cover, the hamburger.
Sir, the one where you showed me earlier.
Yeah, the same one with the nice hamburger in it.
Yes, sir.
That was a real hamburger, by the way.
So
Yes,
anybody
sir.
else have questions? I see some hands raised. Hold up.
I would like to ask a question, Mr. Bulwer. You mentioned that we had to share, just keep on sharing. I would like to ask, what if you had a little amount to share? Would you still share that little bit you had?
You remember the widow's mite? If you ever read scripture, there's a thing called the widow's mite. It was an account in the Gospels where it said, and it's written that a lady only had 2 mites, and there are people who perhaps gave much more money. Long story short, this story is recorded for posterity. That's why I can mention it. It's a 2,000-year-old story. But it is not the quantity or the amount. I think it's more the attitude. Everyone has something, even if it is a word of encouragement, even if it is helping someone along the way. Whatever you have, you can't get what you don't have, but whatever stage you are, whatever you have, and as I said, giving is not just material, giving is an attitude, giving a word of encouragement, thinking positively about someone is giving actually, as positive vibes. So I'm not looking at material giving. It's more actually an attitude of trying to be kind and helpful to others, trying to see yourself in another person, trying to, when you see, for example, when I remember a man told me, Dr. Bulwer, I've never had a doctor like you. A former minister came all the way from St. Ignace, and then a man came and said, Doc, I've never had this kind of treatment, but how are you going to make money like this? Spending an hour with the patient, right? But here's the point. It's just like a teacher says to a student, if you cheat, you're not cheating me, you're cheating yourself. Because if you think that getting a grade or making so much money is what makes you this or that, then you've violated a principle and all you're doing is cheating yourself. But if you have a penny and you give a penny to someone who needs that, you actually end up receiving far more than a penny. I gave up trying to help people, not to try to make money from being stuck in an office just to make merchandise of people's sickness when I could help them become well, to eat well, to take care of their bodies. And you know what? In the scheme of things, in the economy of how things work, that freed me up. And how did I know that someone was watching and seeing what I was doing and said, hey, I want you to raise your game? So whatever you have, that's the answer. It's not material things. If you have an attitude of giving, of helping, that's a character. That's something, you know, in the scheme of things. I look at life, honestly, I look at life from a very spiritual point of view. And spiritually speaking, whatever you give, you receive.
So Dr. Bulwer, we have 6 more questions.
Go ahead.
Miriam, go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Bernard. My question is going back to the time you were studying. Did you face any challenges?
Studying where? I've been studying for a long time. I'm still a student, by the way.
Well, you can start from, let's say, from primary school until you are like right now. Have you ever faced any challenges, for example, like had any subject or any topic that you didn't understand? Or there was a time in your career that you felt like you couldn't take the pressure anymore? And how did you overcome it?
Wow, you're asking me to write a book now. I've written on Facebook that I've been through stuff enough to kill 10 men. This person standing on you here, my biggest graduation is the School of Hard Knocks. You know, I was a good student in primary school, first, second, or third. I don't think I came first, maybe second or third most. In SJC high school, you know, I was like top 3. In sixth form, I was like, you know, top 1, or I got like the 3rd scholarship, you know, open scholarship back then. But that was the easy part. I went to Jamaica where I had 2 A-levels. They had 4 or 5. My A-levels were the best in Belize, well, the 3rd best in Belize, a B, a C, and a D. And then the people in Jamaica and Trinidad, they were 4 A's, right? Wow. So I realized that, wow. But then when we got on the same playing field, right, I realized one of the subjects that I did was zoology. I knew animals. I played with animals in Belize. I was on a farm. I was a nature guy. They didn't. They were learning theory. I learned practical. But long story short, I went through an experience in medical school in Jamaica in my first year where I literally went through a period where I wanted to end my life. That was, interestingly, a period when I went through my own depression. I couldn't think or study. That was when I had my first spiritual encounter, because I was trying to put Belize on the map. I went through a situation. It was a combination of personal issues, you know, the usual thing. A young man, you fall in love and things don't work how you wanted to, and then all the things started happening, and then you have to study, and then everything starts snowballing, right? So I went into the depths. Deep, literally thought about ending it. Went to priests, trying to ask people to pray, you know, nothing worked. Thought I was going to come back home to Belize either dead or crazy. That's when my life fundamentally changed to this day in terms of my skills, my abilities. But one of the fundamental changes, exactly what I told you is that I started thinking outside of my own self and started thinking of others. So that was one. Career-wise, I never had any issues with actual uh, um, academia book studies, but I had issues with life and people. And two of those experiences are actually in my books, right? One of them, you're seeing stuff in the news. I came from Belize, right, with some gifts and talents that America didn't teach me. Yes, I trained here. But what you saw happen in the streets where people, men unarmed are being shot, we only know about it because of the smartphone and the cell phone cameras. Those things actually happen in real life. So I had people gang up to destroy me professionally, right? I was locked up for 15 weeks by ICE in Houston. That's 2008. I actually, because of, again, in the context of people trying to destroy me, I landed up in hospital for 15 days, could not tell night from day, right? Blind. So if you look at my book, you would see, like, in the cover, you'll see awesome giver of sight. 1 second. These are some of my books here. I don't have any of the new ones, but these are like one of the old school ones here. But I'm showing you in my dedication page. This thing says, to the awesome giver of sight, who when I was blind made me see, when bound set me free. What I learned, the short of it, is that life is a package deal. Life is 10% of what happens to you, 10%, 10, and 90% of how you respond. I like that adage because
Hey, Dr.
real life.
I don't
Go
mean
ahead.
to interrupt you, but we have 9 more questions.
Okay.
And we have 9:30 to end. So I just
Okay.
want everyone to get in their questions.
I'll keep them short.
Jamal?
I just wanted you to finish. Life is 10% of what happens to you, and
That thing is good. Life is 10% of what happens and 90% of how you respond. Actually, those things,
90%.
90% of how you respond, because
you respond.
What determines, in other words, if someone doesn't like you, if someone says you're stupid, if someone says you're ugly, if someone says you're going to amount to anything, that's their prerogative. What really matters is how you respond. If you're going to take their word as God or gospel, or if you're going to have some dignity and some respect that you are a person created with a purpose and a mission, and no other person has the right, the authority, or the power to determine your future. That's not men's decision. And if you learn that, if you understand that human beings are human beings and not gods, then you're on the right track.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernard.
Great.
It was a pleasure.
Jamal, could you ask your question?
Good night, Dr. Bulwer. My question is concerning to what you stated about giving. In Belize, because of the limited opportunities that are provided and your upward mobility is limited, dependent on your access, right? So it's very competitive, and in certain situations you don't know when to let somebody else pass, because the feeling comes about that you probably feel as if though this is my time, and if I give a support to this person, probably in a Belizean context, I will never receive that opportunity again. So I am most of the time facing that conflict now. So I would like for you to speak on that, please.
Well, you've touched something I could speak on for 5 hours, and I'm saying this because I really would want to continue this conversation. I know with Zoom and so forth, we have time limits. Over 4 years ago, I wanted to, it was going to disturb what I'm doing in the States, but I thought it was important enough for young people and their opportunities that when the vacancy for president had come up, I, against all advice from other people, I said, you know what, I can help to open doors for young people because I know what's possible, including the fact that if you are a national university, it means that you have contact with all the national universities in all the countries in the world, and which means that UB doesn't even have enough students, right? I could have gotten more than 1,000 scholarships if I was president of the university to open doors in areas and countries that Belizeans would want. And that's just I'm not talking theory. I know I'm in the education field, so I know how this works. I lament the situation that's going on. You guys are the future. And I think, just like I said, life is 10%. What happens to you, 90%, how you respond. You're living in a country that doesn't have a vision. I don't care which party it is. Post-independence Belize has never had a vision for us to become a country like Singapore, and the emphasis that they put on developing their people and opportunities so that the country can be strong. Having said that, no person in Belize is a master of your destiny. And that's why at whatever step you are, the best advice, and I'm saying this unapologetically, your life is not an accident. As I told you, I see life now spiritually, right? Everyone has their own perspective and their own journey. But I can tell you, when I've looked at life, in my life, in the lives of others in this earth, just like I mentioned the little athlete, could you imagine in Japan, they were outcasts, family didn't want to deal with them, but that's not new. If you look at history, Jesus was born in a pig pen or horse pen and dung. So it's not strange, it's not new. And if you look at life, there are many people, even if you're into sport, you saw people like, never forgot when this guy Durant, he spoke about, Mom, you're the real MVP. When you didn't eat, we ate. So adversity, even adversity in Belize where they're not looking out for you, do not give the circumstance power over how you become. In other words, even in a relationship, if anybody treats you like an animal, you are not an animal. You don't have to become like one. Act like a human being. Don't let them decide that they're going to turn you into an animal, because here's what I'm saying is, even in America, I had to face that. I had to face the fact that there's something called white supremacy, that there are people who believe that this little boy from Belize, this little black boy from Yabra, not supposed to know more than them, not supposed to do what he's doing. And that's why they tried to destroy me. I could have gone on that, because what they would have wanted was for me to become violent and commit a crime so that they could lock me up and shoot me. I didn't allow them to do that. I beat them at law and I beat them at medicine. Here's my point. Don't let people turn you into animals. Don't let them have power over your future. Be a kind person. Be a caring person. Ask God to help you to find out why you're here, what you need to do. Give it your best shot. And trust me, I am a firm believer. I don't care where you start. I don't care what the circumstance. We see it all the time, right? That there is a thing called tomorrow. And things happen that you don't see what's going to happen tomorrow or the next week or the next year, but do it anyway. Just keep on, I can't emphasize this. If you set out on a journey, everyone's journey is different. Your journey is not going to be my journey, because just like your fingerprints, your life will be that. But give life your best shot. I can't emphasize that anymore. If you have one finger, use it. You have people who born without hands, use it.
Dr. Bulwer, I don't want to interrupt you, but we are on a tight schedule, and we still have a bunch of questions.
Shoot them. I'll try to get through as much. I'll try to keep them short so that we can cover most.
So we have Angel. You have a question?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Bulwer. I think you're...
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
The angel of the nativity.
Yeah, that's right.
And I believe he's attending Harvard, aren't you, Angel?
Yeah, but the college, not the medical school.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think you're you're in the Council of Science Advisors. Do you remember when that was formed, and what did you guys do exactly?
I'm glad that you asked that question. Dr. Ali Petters and I met, and the whole plan was that we could give an advice. It's one of the sad things that it really ended up just being something on paper. Just to let you know, I have tried to impart help to Belize in different ways, with the heart surgery, open heart surgery program, and relating with my colleagues during COVID, both publicly and behind the scenes. But it was a gesture, but it never went anywhere. It never went anywhere, and that's a great lament. I've written publicly that we're not a serious country. If we were serious, we would collect all our talents. You see countries all over the world, they take their people and they bring them on board to help each other, right? Every student there should have had access to people like me and hundreds of Belizeans and other people abroad like me. I wanted to, for people to have that mentorship. That's why I'm more than open to, I really thank Maria for this forum. I didn't prepare anything about it. I didn't even read what she wrote. I said, hey, I'll show up, right? Because the least I can do is try to impart, right? So the Council of Science Advisors should literally be everyone who has something to offer. Belize is a wealthy country. We have a lot of potential. I mean, I'm not a politician. I'm not into politics, but we need. Go ahead.
Dr. Bulwer,
right?
I'm not rushing you, I swear.
Yeah, go for the adjudicator. I like this. Just shoot.
Yeah. So we have Dominique Norales that would like to ask you a question.
Okay, great. Good night again, Dr. Bulwer, and thank you for making time for us. You spoke a bit about sharing and about nation building. And really what I wanted to ask you was and you spoke a bit about the heart, which is what you specialize in. From where you sit, how do you see us unclogging the diseased heart of Belize, whether that be economically, politically, or socially? And do you see these things as doable and or urgently needed?
What you mean specifically regarding heart disease?
No, regarding economics and politics and society.
Oh, you want my thoughts on that? I have literally written, I estimate at least 500 pages online, mostly on a Belize diaspora page, dealing with issues pertaining to Belize, right? If you join that page, I could forward stuff to you, right? I don't put it publicly open because it's really all own dirty linen, right? You don't want, I have a lot of, I have like more than 17,000 followers on LinkedIn and professional people, so I don't really want that to be just all over the place. But the short of it is this: I wouldn't choose to be born in any other country than Belize. Belize is a baby that had such great potential if we adopt the very same principle that I said, caring and sharing, because everyone has something to offer. If I care about your future, it means I'll be looking out for you. Frankly, I hate to say this. We're dealing with a fundamental spiritual problem where people don't love each other or look out for each other, and they do exactly the opposite, trying to get things for themselves while holding on each other. And what that means is that rather than coming together and bring our collective talents, right, we end up dysfunctional, because one thing, like in the cardiovascular system, it's a system.
Yeah.
A system functions when each part functions. Each part does its job. The heart does its job. But you know what happens when the heart doesn't do its job? You get cardiac dysfunction.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a country where leadership, where the populace, where we don't bring all hands on deck, then you have dysfunction. So our country, not just our country, many countries are dysfunctional. And I'm not talking utopia. There are countries that put their people together in adversity and they build back. Japan was destroyed by atomic weaponry in World War II. Germany also. There are countries that were devastated. Look at South Korea using a Samsung phone. That's a country of 50 million people in an area 5 times the size of Belize, half of the world's ships they build, largest smartphone maker, right? So my point is that where we are, we really need some serious reflection on where we want to go, because that Belize has to first decide where it wants to go, right? Because if it doesn't want anything, then it doesn't do anything. It continues with business as usual.
Yes.
But we don't have that luxury. We have to do something, otherwise we're in real trouble. Simple as that.
Thank you, Dr.
So now that we're down to 5 minutes, literally, Frank Garbot, you're
Yes.
next.
Good night, Dr. Bulwer. Nice to have you on this forum. We spoke about sharing and giving, and especially in Belize, we need to have statesmen instead of politicians.
Absolutely.
It remind me of a book I read, a book called The Servant Leader, about putting others before you and growing with them and what's not.
That's a biblical principle. That's what I believe.
I do believe we have people like that. I consider myself one of those, but how do we get those people on the forefront? How do we draw them out and turn the tide in this two-party and these aggressive politicians, you know?
Can I tell you a little thing? We're seeing something happening right now, okay? I am convinced. I've spoken in private with this. You know, I've learned one principle in life. You cannot build a solid building on a shaky foundation. You can't have a wonderful relationship if you're a liar and a cheater, okay? And if you build a building with crappy stuff, it's gonna fall down. We have, what we need is that there are many good people in Belize. My message, keep on doing good. You know why? Because the people who are doing bad, that will catch up with them. Yeah. Like right now, Belize didn't do its homework. We should have been fixing the roof while the sun is shining, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're going to move on to Alson. Alson, could you ask your question?
Good night, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you hear you?
Good night, Dr. Bernard. So from your presentation, what I gather is that you're a very, very intelligent person, right? I'm a student of life. In Belize, there are people who have really big dreams, like they want to become a doctor, right? And they might not be as intelligent as you or as book smart. What advice would you give to these people who still want to become a doctor, even though that they might not have the capacity to study rigorously or retain knowledge quickly, or even have like good student qualities? What advice would you give to these people who still want to pursue their big dreams and become doctors?
Write this down. Write this down. The proof of desire is pursuit. The proof of desire is pursuit. It's just like, you know the guy who is after the girl, right? And he pursues her. If you're after your dreams, if you're after your career, you do what it takes to capture that. What it means is that one big advantage that we have right now, right, is that we have access to knowledge like never before. We're living in the information age. And pretty much, you know, a lot of stuff is out there. You reach for it. For example, you have my email now, right? Because time is wrapping up. Write me, and then we can start taking it from there. But pursue what you really want, right? Which means whatever it takes, find a way, right? I like that saying. You know, if you're looking for an excuse, you find some excuse. But if you want to get those things, you find a way. But we all need people along the way. You know, no man is an island. So write me, and we could continue this conversation, you know, or whoever has that. I really would, if you were to ask me, I wish Belize has a mentorship situation where this is not just a Zoom event. This is part of our culture, that we help each other. You don't have to be my picnic and know my smarts. You see, people keep their smarts only within their family, and they give their family opportunity and that kind of stuff. That's the same thing I told you, selfishness. But write me.
So Dr. Bulwer, what I'll go ahead and do, I'm going to share his email. I'm going to get your information that you want to share. I'm going to share it with our fellows, and I'm letting you know right now it's about 50 people. So that's a lot of people reaching out. I'm just giving you the heads
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I know. Logistically, it would be impossible for me, but I will take note of it. I would really want to see, because I've always believed that it is a community, and I had wanted, if I was at UB, I would have gotten hundreds of scholars and people who made it to mentor hundreds and hundreds of students, because that's how it's sustainable. When and so I would want us to kind of do this again. We kind of iron out some of the bugs, right? But that's not with me. I'm sure there are lots of things to impart. It saddens me. Why we are weak is that those who, I am disconnected from you, and I am supposed. You see, if the Council of Science Advisors and other people, we should have had a system where, any young people who want any stuff, that they have someone to go to